Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us at today's introduction to the new HOBOlink. We're going to give folks another minute or two to join, and then we will get started. All right, hello everyone. It's 2 after, and we have a fair amount of material to cover, so I'm going to hop right into it. Welcome to the webinar of Sierra Brandt, the HOBO Software Product Manager. As we get started, just a few logistics. If you can't hear me, please make sure to check your audio settings in the GoToWebinar control panel. This webinar is scheduled to last around 60 minutes. If you have any questions that come up as we go through today's material, please enter them into the box. We've set aside some time towards the end to answer those questions. We'll get to as many as we can. And as a note, this is being recorded, and we'll make the recording available to all attendees in a day or two after the webinar wraps up. So as an agenda, we just covered logistics. For the rest of the session today, we'll take an overview of the new HOBOlink. Then we'll dive into some new and improved features that are coming your way with the launch of the new HOBOlink. We'll talk about how you're going to transition from your current HOBOlink experience to the new HOBOlink. And then, as I just mentioned, we'll set aside some time for questions, which we will capture at the end. So as an overview for the new HOBOlink, I wanted to start with a quick note about names. So HOBOlink is the current name and will continue to be the name of HOBO's cloud IoT platform for RX stations and MX loggers. We're not changing the name overall, but as we go through the transition, we found it helpful to have some terms to describe the current version and the new version. So you may hear me talk about the current gen HOBOlink, which is the existing HOBOlink that you log in and see today, or the new HOBOlink, or the next gen HOBOlink. This will be the new and improved version of HOBOlink, but I'm just going to use these to describe the transition as helpful terminology. Moving forward, it will continue to be this HOBOlink as the name of the product. And I just want to assuage any fears you might have. All your existing users and devices will seamlessly migrate over to the next gen HOBOlink experience. We'll talk about this later in detail. But before we get there, I wanted to walk you through a high-level overview of why did we go ahead and build a next-gen HOBOlink. So HOBOlink has helped and continues to help thousands of customers around the world remotely monitor their environment and make more sustainable decisions for over a decade now. And we here at HOBO have seen a growing need for remote IoT monitoring needs around the world and an increasing desire for advanced software experiences. So we rebuilt HOBOlink to carry forward HOBOlink's most important features and also to improve the user experience across platforms so that it's now has an increased responsivity. It'll work better on a mobile device, a tablet device, and a desktop device moving forward. We also added in some new features to allow HOBOlink to scale with growing organizations. And we based these new feature selections on market research as well as customer input like you. We really listened to the feedback that we got for customers and have implemented a lot of their most common asks into the new version of HOBOlink. So as a high-level overview of what's new and what's improved, in the what's improved column, we've completely redesigned the user interface with the aim of improving usability and responsiveness. We've refreshed our device pages to provide easy access to device status and measurements, really the key data that you guys are looking at for the devices. And by that, I mean RX stations and MX loggers. We've streamlined our flows for creating, scheduling, and managing exports to make that process easier for our users. In terms of what's new, we have a completely new dashboard engine. We know that visualization is a key feature of HOBOlink in many applications, and our current dashboard engine has some limitations. So we've replaced that with a brand new engine that supports more dashboards, more widgets per dashboard, and up to 1 year of data visualization at a time, really unlocking the ability to see seasonal trends. We've also added support for multiple users and multiple organizations, and that's going to let you scale HOBOlink up efficiently and securely. And we see a lot of increasing need around integrating HOBO data into data ecosystems, into external application. And so we've implemented a self-service API so that you can get all you need to do that integration right from the HOBOlink UI without any input or need to reach out to us. Through the following slides, I'm going to briefly cover the major changes that are involved in next-gen HOBOlink. This is going to be a high-level overview of those to get you situated with the new experience. We don't have enough time today to do an in-depth training on each feature, but please do note that there'll be a new in-depth user guide that's going to have detailed instructions for each of these features. And if you have any questions about that, you can always reach out to us here at HOBO and we'll help you through that process. So the login. As you may have heard, there has been a merger with Lycor as a company, and with that, we brought a one cloud, a common cloud application that will provide access to a number of environmental applications from one shared portal. The important thing to note about existing accounts in HOBOlink is in the future, after we've migrated any account over, you will go to lycor.cloud. To access HOBOlink, you will then log in with your existing HOBOlink accounts, and you will see all of the application options that we have available. So using that same HOBOlink account from today, you can click this HOBOlink tile and go over to the HOBOlink experience, or you'll also have access to some additional applications for environmental monitoring, such as the water app from Lycor that does IoE-enabled evapotranspiration. Once you log into HOBOlink, just as you are now, you'll drop into the devices section. We've completely redesigned this section to do a better job of presenting key device info. And one of the big changes is creating a one-stop device shop. So whether you have RX stations, MX loggers, or MX gateways, those are all going to be found in one list in the devices section, so that if you are using a combination of devices, you can manage them all from one single location. Each device is represented via this tile, and we've tailored the tile to specific information about the device, but using a common structure so that you can easily locate key information about devices. So for an RX station, you'll see the device type, the serial number, you'll get the RX station's logging status, whether it's logging currently or stopped. You'll see if any alarms are active for this station, as well as seeing the battery level. For all devices, we'll show the device name, which if you don't give a custom one, will just be the serial number, but just as you can in the current system, we'll carry over any custom names, and that'll appear right here. For RX stations, you can quickly go into the configuration process to edit the setup for the RX station from the tile, if you so desire, and we'll show the last time that the station connected. The MX loggers have a little less info, but you'll see the product type, you'll see the serial number, and you'll see the device name. Gateway similarly will show you the product type, the serial number, as well as the current status. You can quickly access the configuration for gateway alarms from the tile and see the last time that it connected in. We wanted to give folks an easy way to find devices in this one-stop device shop. So you'll see that we've added a number of search, sort, and filtering options. You can search by device name or serial number. You can sort by last connection time or sort devices alphabetically by their device name. You can quickly narrow down the list to a specific device type. Say you want to look at all your RX 2100s or all your MX 1101s. You can select that here. You can filter by groups, which is a user-defined field when you're configuring a device. You can quickly sort by and filter by alarm status, so you can see devices that currently are in an alarm status, just like you see up here. And then you can also sort by plan status to see which devices are active and which ones have lapsed. When you click those tiles, you'll go to a completely redesigned connected device screen. We use the same format generally here for all your device types, but the individual sections are tailored to the specific device. And we've redesigned this to better show key device info prominently on the page. So walking through the page in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see similar information to the tile. We've just reprinted it here so you don't have to navigate back to see information like battery level or signal type. On the upper right-hand corner, you'll see some options for managing the station. You can trigger a stop, a start, or a restart here, and this will be applied on the next connection. You can configure the station, hop in here and change any labels if you need to, change logging intervals, connections, add a sensor, remove a sensor. Just as you can configure your station now, we've carried over all of those helpful features, and they're accessible under the Configure Station button. You'll access logs from this upper right-hand corner, and when you click that, you'll be taken to a nice new overview of logs. You can filter by a specific type, and this will continue to be the place that you want to go to in-depthly monitor the history and health of your RX station. Moving down the page, there will be a device summary section. So that's going to show you the logging status and the configuration status of the RX station. If you have made any configuration changes under the configuration station option, you'll see those appear here in configuration status, because as you may know, those are only applied the next time the station connects to HOBOlink. And so we'll let you know here if there are any pending configurations that will be applied on the next connection. We'll let you know when we expect that next connection. We'll show you any groups that you've assigned to this device, and we'll also show you the current firmware version. This will be where you trigger a firmware update if there's a new version available. This station happens to be on the latest firmware, but if it were behind, you'd see an upgrade button here that'll open up a pop-up, show some information about the latest firmware version, and allow you to apply it the next time the station connects. And then lastly, in the top section of this page, we've added a latest alarm section. We think alarms and alerts are a really critical feature for many users of HOBOlink, but in the current system, you do have to dive into the logs to see some of that information. So now we're going to print the latest history of alarms. You get approximately 10 entries depending on the size of the screen that you're using, and we'll show you the most recent alarm events that have been triggered. So for an example, This is a station that we set up to miss a few connections and then reconnect the HOBOlink. And so you'll see here an entry for each of them, when the alarm was triggered, date, time, type of alarm. And then similarly, you'll see that this station did connect. We cleared that alarm and the date, time information for that. Moving down the RX station page, you'll see a new measurement section. So we formerly called this channels, but we're updating the language here to be a little clearer and a little less inside baseball. But this is going to show you all of the environmental data that you're collecting from this station. At the top, we'll tell you the last time that the station connected. So that'll be the date, time that these measurements last came in at, generally. And for each measurement here, there will be a single tile that tells you some information about that measurement. In the top right, you'll get this indicator if it's a measurement coming from a wireless sensor. You'll also see an alarm indicator if this measurement is currently outside the thresholds for a setup alarm. You'll see the last measurement that we had from this sensor. The type of measurement, this happens to be a soil moisture sensor, so the type is water content. You'll see a label if a user gave a measurement a custom label. I did when I set this up. So you'll see the label printed here, as well as the serial number for this measurement. And for wireless sensors only, you'll see an additional date time that's specific to this measurement. That really comes into play if your system is in recovery mode, if your motes are figuring out the best path. So we just want to make sure that we're showing the date time that's associated with this measurement right on the tile. We also frequently get requests to reorder the measurement list, and so you'll have that ability in the new HOBOlink experience. If you grab these two parallel horizontal lines, you can move around the tile at will, reorder them as they make sense to you, and when you come back to this page, HOBOlink will remember that order, and you'll keep seeing the measurements in your user-defined order. If you click on one of these tiles, you'll see this new quick look option. It's our replacement for that dashboard feature that you see with the device. You get the last 10 days of measurements. You'll see some alarms if you have set this up for the measurement. And by default, this is going to be this line chart view. But if you prefer a tabular view, you can quickly switch over using this toggle up here. Just click this little table. You'll see a tabular view as opposed to this line chart view that I'm currently showing. And lastly on the page, if you happen to have a wireless sensor network attached to your station, we will show you a wireless sensor health table. This will show you each wireless sensor that you have attached to the station, as well as some status and health information. You'll see battery level, you'll see signal strength, and you'll see the status for that wireless sensor. So that covers the RX page. We have a similar page that's tailored to MX loggers if you select that tile from the list of devices. Walking through this page, you'll have a similar view on the upper left-hand corner, some high-level information about that device. You'll then see a last upload banner. MX devices frequently connect to HOBOlink on an irregular schedule. You might have deployed these in the field and only come through once a month, once every 6 months to download those files and then push them up via HOBO Connect. And so we want to make sure that you understand when the rest of the information that you'll see on this page came into the system. This banner will follow you down the page as you look at things like measurements and the deployment history and tell you the last time this logger called into HOBOlink, both in date time format and the number of days that it's been seen since, and also the path via which this logger last connected to HOBOlink. So I pushed up this logger via HOBO Connect, but you may see via MX Gateway if the logger uses that as the upload path. We have a similar measurements section here where you'll see latest measurement, type of measurement. You'll see the label if you've added one and the serial number for the measurement. Below that, we have a deployment history table, which lets you see the history of the configuration and data uploads for this logger. So for each configuration that's done in HOBO Connect, you'll see the date time that that configuration was first seen by HOBOlink, the name of the logger, and the last time data was uploaded within that configuration. And then if you open this section, you'll see detailed information about the configuration. What was the logging interval set up in HOBO Connect? What was the logging mode? You'll see all of the information about the measurements that are associated with this logger, and you can see that for each configuration change. And then lastly, we have an MX gateway page. This page only has a bit of information about it, as gateways are just a pass-through device. You'll see a serial number, the type of device, as well as the gateway name. You can configure alarms for the gateway via this button. You'll then see a gateway summary table with the gateway status and the network status. You'll see the firmware version for the gateway the last time it connected. And then we've added a new section so that you can clearly know which loggers pushed up through this gateway the last time that it connected to HOBOlink. So when my gateway connected up to HOBOlink, I just had this one logger in range configured to push up via the gateway. And so it's listed here with the logger name, serial number, the device type, and the last upload date. You might see multiple entries here if there are multiple gateway loggers in range when this gateway connects to HOBOlink. So that's a run through of all the connected devices screens. Back at the top level of that tile view, you'll notice in the new system that we've moved the maps section from the dashboard section over to the devices section. This is really just an overview in a geographical format of your list of devices. And you can quickly toggle between the tile view and the map view using this toggle that's in the upper right-hand corner. And we've carried forward the great map functionality of HOBOlink, where you can place your stations and your loggers wherever they are in the world. And then once you've placed them, you can come in, you can easily open each of these device indicators, see some information about the device, the last time it called in, as well as the current conditions the last time the logger called in. So that covers the devices section. Now I'll just walk down the menu to working through other features of the new HOBOlink. So next up is going to be dashboards. And as I mentioned in the introduction, we've completely redesigned this section. There is a brand new dashboard engine behind the scenes here, and that let us remove that 10 dashboard limit and that 10 widget per dashboard that you see in the current system. We've also extended the time extent for dashboards up to a max of 1 year. So that's going to support both an absolute time frame. You could set it to say the year 2023, right? January 1st through December 31st, 2023, and always see that static data, dive in as you need. And you can also set it up as a relative time frame. So you can set it up to 1 year as a rolling time frame. And every day that you come in, you're going to see the current day plus the last 355 days. There are some great new features when you're creating a new dashboard to quickly get you started. So all dashboards, whether they start with a blank canvas or using our template features, will require a name. But we've added this template feature, which will show you a list of the devices in this dropdown. And if you select the device, we'll then go ahead and create one widget per measurement associated with that station at the time of creation. And what's really great about this versus the static version that we show you in the current system is that you can customize this to really match your needs. Let's say that you don't like the thermometer when viewing temperature. You'd rather see it as a gauge, or you'd rather see a line chart for that. You can quickly come in here and update the kind of widget that you're seeing. You can change the colors. You can move these around and really customize your device dashboard to your needs. But we get you started with this template by showing you one widget per measurement. Once you've created your dashboard, you'll see them in a list of tiles similar to the devices. We'll show the name, the last time it was updated. You can edit the device directly there. You can duplicate a dashboard, and then you can also delete a dashboard if you no longer need it. The next section in HOBOlink will be the data section. And then we have a few subsections here. First one up is exports. We've done a major overhaul to improve usability of this section. We know some users find that current tree structure a little confusing and sometimes frustrating when entries are grayed out. So we've completely redone that. You'll now see a flat list of all the measurements that exist in the system, and you can select any of them at any time. To get started here, you'll select either a device name or a measurement type. You can enter a date range, and then we'll show you a list of all the measurements in the system that meet that criteria. If you want to export multiple devices, you can just add an additional device name via that drop down or a measurement type. You can also narrow down these measurements by date range if you only want to see the measurements that have some data points within the range that you set. Once you see the channels or the measurements that you want to include in an export, you'll just click the box and then you'll create new export. That's going to open up this nice wizard that'll walk you through both the required and optional steps for creating an export. Every one of those needs a name. You can change the format from CSV to Excel, and you'll set a time zone for all the measurements to be reported in. If you want to include any events data from MX loggers, you can click this box. And then for every export, you're going to want to set a time frame. So similar to dashboards, you can set both an absolute and a relative time range. So you can set a date range. Say I want all of the data for those measurements from the month of March. I would set that from March 1st through March 31st. And then if I rerun that report, I'm going to get the same data. It's an absolute time frame. But if I want to select the time period, that's going to give me a rolling window. So I've shown a 1-day example here. I set this up for 1 day. When I run it, I'm going to get the last 24 hours worth of data. But now if I come back and I run this tomorrow, I'm going to get all new data. I'll get tomorrow's data when I run it at the end of the day. You can set the order of the columns in the Export Order tab. And you can also set up scheduling directly in the export now. We found this to be a really nice feature coming out of our internal user testing that people were really happy to see exposed up here. Unless you quickly send off any export to either an FTP, SFTP site, or to an email address. This could be your email address if you just want a personal backup of data from HOBOlink, but it can also be a way to share data on a regular basis with colleagues without any need to take action on your part to resend the data each time. So if you want to schedule an export, you're going to do all the steps I just said, come to the scheduling tab and turn on the export feature. Then you'll tell us the frequency to send this export. I've set this up so that this export is delivered once a week on Mondays at noon in the UTC time zone, but you can change this to be daily, weekly, monthly, every 6 months. The frequency is up to you. And then you'll just tell us where to send it. And no matter whether they're scheduled exports or on-demand exports, you'll see all of these added to an export queue once you've created them. This means if you come and you ask us for a lot of data from an export, you don't have to sit here waiting in the screen for that export to be generated. You can go off, keep using HOBOlink, and come back here, and as soon as the report is ready, you'll see it listed as report ready in the table. For every report that's ready, you'll have some options, including downloading the report, rerunning the report, editing the report, or deleting the report. And on the off chance that there's any error during the export generation process or the sending process for a scheduled export, you'll see this chip here. It'll show you that an error happens. And if you click the chip, you'll see some detailed information about that error, and you can send that over to our tech support team. One thing to note about the new system is that if you have data that's older than a year or from inactive devices, we will continue to make that available. You'll just access that via the archive. That's going to use the exact same export generation process. You'll just toggle over to the archive, create your export, and it'll also be entered into the same queue as the live data exports. Moving down the data subsections, we have support for accumulated rain in next-gen HOBOlink, and that's going to give you some options for hourly, daily, weekly, and monthly accumulated rain. It's quick create calculated measurements process where you tell us an input channel, and then you'll see an entry for each calculated measurement option that you've set up. And you can also quickly hop over to the associated device using this button on the tile. And just as a note, we do have plans to add more calculated measurement in future releases, but accumulated rain is what we have support for in the first version. We've maintained support for the NUA data feed in this system. They're a great way to access microclimate, data around agriculture, IPM data, and you can push our HOBO weather data over to their system and get some advanced analytics. You'll create that data feed in a very similar way that you do now. Click this button, you'll map the data, and then we'll show you this tab so that you can see how many new data feeds you have active. And lastly, in the data section, we now have a self-service API feature. You'll come here and you can now generate up to 5 tokens in the system. So there's no need to reach out to us to get any API credentials. You can generate and manage them right from the HOBOlink UI. As I said, up to 5 tokens. It's important to note here that this token will be valid until you delete it. And then just be careful about deletion, because as soon as you do, any system or person that was using this token will no longer have access. We'll revoke access as part of that, but this gives you really full control over which API clients are accessing your data in HOBOlink. We've also included some modern API documentation via a Swagger doc. It'll show you the endpoints that are available, and you can actually try out our endpoints, receive the API calls directly in Swagger by using the token that you generated in the HOBOlink UI. You can drop it here and actually make calls and see responses directly from this UI. Moving down, we've carried forward the settings. There's no really enhancements to note here, but this is where you can set up some export format settings or tell us a default FTP, SFTP structure to use throughout. So carrying forward that great functionality under the settings tab. There's now going to be a brand new accounts feature and tab in HOBOlink, and that's where you're going to access all of that multiple user and multiple org support. So when you create an account, or when we migrate over your account, each time you're going to create a user with a username and password, and also an organization. We call this company name in the current system, but it'll be called organization going forward. What's nice about the new system is instead of sharing those credentials, that username and password, you can now invite other users to your HOBOlink account. This process is pretty quick. You'll just enter an email address. If it's a new user to HOBOlink, just use whatever email address they'd like you to. But it's important to note here that if it's an existing user of HOBOlink, we recommend you use that same email address so that we can attach these accounts behind the scenes, and that user can have quick access to all their organizations. You'll then assign a role or multiple roles to that user, and I'll explore these more in depthly in a minute, and then hit set invite. We'll then handle the rest. We'll send them over an email where they either agree to join your organization for existing users, or we'll ask them to complete their account for new users. They'll be able to set their own password, tell us information like their first name, their last name. And then once that user is added, if they happen to have multiple organizations, each time they log in, they'll get a list of the organizations they're associated with, and they can choose which one to log into. So here I've chosen my HOBOpilot organization. But if I want to swap over to another organization without needing to log out and log back in, I'll just open up this profile menu. It's located in the upper right-hand corner of HOBOlink. I'll see an organization drop down, and I can open this up, choose a new organization, and I'll hop right over to that account. Now, with the addition of multiple users in any account, there usually comes the request to be able to control what each user can see and do in that organization. And so we've added in user roles to give you that power. Each user must have at least one role, but can have multiple roles. And I'll note that the UI is responsive to these roles. So if a user can't see something because their role doesn't allow it, that feature, then we just won't show that part of HOBOlink, making it really seamless for users to only see things that they can actually interact with and manage. We have 4 roles in the new system. We have this special role called account owner. So if you come and you create a new HOBOlink user and organization, you'll automatically get this role. It owns the account and can manage all parts of the system automatically. So this is really sort of a super user. And it means that even if you remove all of the other roles or all of the other users, there's always someone who can access this account and see and manage all parts of it. We have an account admin role. That's going to give any user with this role the ability to manage users, add additional users, change their roles, and manage billing parts of the system. But if you just have this role alone, those users cannot see nor manage devices, dashboards, or data. If you're a user with a device admin role, you'll be able to manage devices, dashboards, and data, but you won't be able to manage users. Device viewer is a version of device admin in that they can view devices and view dashboards and also create exports, but they can't add, edit, or delete devices or dashboards, and similarly, they can't manage users. One user can have multiple roles, so you can have a device viewer, device admin, and account admin. All these permissions are just going to be additive. So if you have all three of these roles, you have all the power in the system that's exposed to external users. And lastly, roles are organization specific. So I might be an account owner in the account that I created in HOBOlink, but then my colleague invites me over to their HOBOlink organization and they tell me I'm a device viewer. So in my organization, I can do everything, but when I hop over to my colleague's organization, I'm just going to be able to view devices and dashboards and create exports. Now, this can be a lot when I cover it like this, because these are a lot of very powerful tools. So I thought I'd just sort of recap what each of these concepts mean, and then leave you with some best practices. So a user, you can just basically think of this as a person, and we define them with a username and a password. Now, moving forward, we highly recommend as a best security practice that each person creates their own account in HOBOlink and that they never share their password with anyone else. Each account supports multiple users at no additional fee, so there's no there's no work that you need to do here. There's no cost, but we do recommend this as a best security practice. An organization, you can best think of this as a group of devices. So any user with a device-centric role, account owner, device admin, device viewer, will be able to see all devices within an organization. So if you come into a situation where you want some users to view a specific set of devices, but you don't want other users to, that's when you're going to want to create a new org and bucket those devices. And then a role gives you the relationship between the two, and it lets you control what a user can see and do in a specific org. Now, I want to note as we wrap up here on multi-users and multi-orgs that we think this is a really powerful set of tools for quickly and securely scaling up HOBOlink for any application. And if you've used any enterprise software in your current setup, many of these concepts might be familiar to you. But I also want to caution you that you only need to use what you need here. When you hit a point where you want to add another user, you'll just hit that add user button. If you get a point where you want to start grouping your devices, that's when you're going to add a new organization. So you really just need to use these features as your organization grows, as your needs increase. And so HOBOlink's going to grow with you and your team and add these on over time as the situation requires them. So that's an overview of all of the new and improved features of HOBOlink. Now let's talk about how we get from the current version of HOBOlink to the new version of HOBOlink. So everyone always asks the timing question. Right now we're timing for launching the new HOBOlink experience and kicking off the migration process. It's looking like late September to early October. That's really dependent on hitting some internal targets and finishing up a few features. So please watch out for your email. We will send announcements about this, just as we said, the announcement about this webinar. We've designed this transition to be as seamless as technically feasible. I'll talk you through all the parts that might have some impact on your operations, but really we anticipate that this will be pretty seamless for a vast majority of users. And then just one note here that with the exception of U30s, all devices and data will migrate over to the new system. So how's the migration process going to work? Let's walk through this at a high level. When your account is selected for migration, we're going to temporarily pause device uploads and limit your access to HOBOlink. This is really key for the migration process to be successful because we can't have new data or changes happening in the system as we're trying to migrate you over. We are planning for this limited access and device pause to be a very short time period, likely a few hours. The exact time frame is going to depend on the complexity of your account. As you can imagine, if you have an account with 1 or 2 loggers that you added last month, that process goes much more quickly than if you have a lot of RX stations that have been pumping in data for 10 years. But overall, we're aiming to keep this to be a few hours. We'll migrate your account during this lockout period, and we'll perform a quality assurance process to verify that the migration went as expected. We'll then reinstate your device uploads, and any data that was collected during the pause will start to be backfilled into the system. We'll send you a migration complete email, and it's going to include all the details letting you know that your account has been migrated and some actions that you'll need to take to get into your migrated account. For all users, that's going to include resetting your password. This maintains the utmost security of your account. It's going to be a simple process of clicking a link within the email and going and setting a new password, just like if you hit forgot password in the current system. There may also be a few post-migration actions that you need to complete depending on your situation. I'm going to cover those on the next slide. But then lastly, I want to note that any data that's older than 1 year is going to get backfilled slowly in the system after migration is complete. This really lets us keep this lockout period short and make sure that new data is coming into the system as soon as your account is migrated over. So some details to note. So dashboards. Due to the technical complexity of a dashboard and the changing out of the engine, they will not be replicated in the new system. If you have any dashboards that are critical to your operation, please go ahead and take some screenshots and notes ahead of time, and you'll be able to quickly recreate those. But really, we encourage you to explore our new dashboard options, including the templating tools. We think they're much better than the current system, and so you should be quickly up and running with much improved dashboards. Exports. So a vast majority of these are going to migrate over without any change. Just a few minor points to note. If you happen to have some really old export definitions that are floating around, say you've set up a relative export, but the device is no longer active, we're going to drop those in the migration process. But every export that has any active data or devices associated with them will migrate over seamlessly without any action on your part. And then I mentioned the scheduled exports feature. We have this in a way in the current system. We call those scheduled deliveries, and they apply to a group of exports. So we're moving that to each individual export. We'll apply the same frequency, but please note there are some really minor differences between the frequencies between the old and the new system. So if you are highly concerned about exactly when your scheduled export shows up, you'll just need to hop into the system, take a look at the frequency, and make any tweaks if you need to for your scheduled deliveries. Actions required. So as a reminder, please export any U30 data that you'd like to keep by September 1st. Post-migration, you'll need to reset your password, and you'll need to reconfigure any gateways as they use this password. And then it's at this point that any API users can be able to begin to use their new tokens and endpoints. If you are an API user, you should have seen a number of communications about the new API and how to transition over. And this is when the transition point will happen for you. Now, you don't need to remember all of these off the cuff. We just want to give you some notice in advance. When your account migration is complete, we will send you an email. It'll include the link to reset your password, and it will include all the steps that I've listed here. Plus, you'll see reminders in both HOBOlink and HOBO Connect, depending on what you use, that you need to take these steps. And then lastly, once migration is complete, you'll have access to all the great new features that we've added to HOBOlink. So feel free to hop in and start using those. A few notes about data plans. So with this, we're introducing all new data plans, really meant to streamline your choices here and to better reflect the customer usage and data that we see. For RX stations, there'll be 3 plans available. We've streamlined the choices that you need to make. All you really need to care about is the number of measurements that you want to collect. The basic plan has a max of 10, the standard plan has a max of 25, and the premium plan is just going to be the max of whichever device that you've chosen. This just depends a little bit on the exact RX station that you've chosen, and you can look at the documentation if you want to see what the max is. But whatever the station hardware max is, the software will support under the premium plan. Then the other parameter that you'll need to look at is how quickly do you want to log data. The basic plan has 1 hour as the fastest logging rate. The standard plan has 5 minutes, and the premium plan is also the max supported by that device. A few notes here. So sometimes people ask about the connection interval. That just needs to be twice what the logging interval is, and ensures that the system can process the data by the next time that the batch is received. And all of these RX plans include an onset SIM card and onset cellular coverage at no additional cost. In the new system, we are transitioning so that each station and each MX logger requires a plan to upload to HOBOlink. So basically any device that you want to push data to the cloud from is going to need a plan. Plans are no longer associated with gateways, and we'll cover that transition in just a second. Each plan for an MX logger, whether it's pushed out via a gateway or HOBO Connect, will need one of these plans. The MX speed plan covers a vast majority of MX logger cases, supporting up to 4 measurements and a 1-minute logging rate at $25 a year. And the MX data will catch a few of the less common use cases. For example, if you want to collect stats, this will be the plan for you, but comes at a slightly lower fastest logging rates. Now, I know many of you have an active data plan, and so you're wondering, how do we get from the old plans to the new plans? So the migration process will handle the move to a new plan without any additional cost for paying customers. But as a reminder, going forward, each MX logger or RX station will require a data plan. Gateways do not. So if you have an RX station with an active data plan, we're going to take a look at how your device is set up and assign the best fit plan for this device. If you have a true end date, you're going to keep that end date and renew at your current schedule. And if you happen to have a non-true end date, some of these grandfathered plans, we're going to give you 1 year of complimentary service. So you'll see an end date 1 year from migration. If you have an MX logger that's pushed through a gateway, remember that each of these loggers is going to require a plan, and so we'll do that for you. For each of the loggers that are associated with the gateway, we'll assign the MX speed plan, and you'll get 1 year of service for that logger. You won't see a plan with gateways because they no longer require it. You can add as many gateways as you need without an additional fee. The data plan is associated with the MX logger itself. MX loggers that are pushed out through HOBO Connect will not automatically get a plan, but will require a plan to push new data into the system. And at launch, those will be available at onsetcomp.com or through your distributor to purchase. And lastly, I just want to clarify here that new data is really, these plans get new data being pushed into the system. If you have any existing RX data or MX data in the system, that will continue to be available in HOBOlink without any additional charge. Now, we recognize that this might come with a little consternation as we add in a fee for all MX loggers. We think that HOBOlink offers a lot of valuable tools for HOBO Connect and MX logger users. You get all of the data tools that I've shown today. You get to aggregate data across all your loggers and stations. You can export all of that data easily. You can visualize data trends with dashboards for up to a year. We have secure data storage, and we have a team that's on the hook 24/7, 365 to make sure that HOBOlink is up and running, and as well as all those great new user management features. But to offer all of those services, we are implementing the small annual fee per device. And now we understand if you're in a situation where that doesn't make sense for you, we want to make it clear that we still offer the option of HOBO Connect, which has a lot of great features for doing similar things, but the management is up to you. So just to emphasize here, HOBOconnect will continue to be a free cross-platform mobile app, and we have no plans to add any fees there. The data and the user management is going to be up to you as the customer, but we've added in a number of features to HOBOconnect to make this process easy. So you can quickly configure loggers consistently with our new saved config option. You can download up to 20 loggers at a time with a bulk download feature. You can then bulk export and share up to 20 files as well, right from within HOBOconnect. And if you are looking to push over to some kind of cloud storage, you can actually, just as easily as you send an email from HOBOconnect, send the files over to a shared drive app. So that's going to be your OneDrives, your Dropboxes, your Google Drives. We're not making any recommendations about what you should use here, but we're just kind of giving you some examples of what we mean by a shared drive app. But if you export and share, select one of those shared drive apps. Usually within a few steps, you can save the file directly to your own cloud storage. One thing to note about the new system is that when you purchase plans in the future, you're going to receive a data plan code via email at the time of order fulfillment for each MX and RX plan that you purchase. This means we can use the same process for all of these plans. And using that code, you'll just add it in when you're adding a device in, for RX devices, you'll use the registered RX device in HOBOlink, or you'll turn on the HOBOlink integration for MX loggers in HOBOconnect. You'll find a field to enter that code. You'll validate the code right here. We're just going to check to make sure that the code is a valid one and you haven't used it previously. Then that's going to go ahead and activate your data plan. Once you've done that, there's going to be some great proactive communication of the limits of these plans. This can be a little hidden in the current system, but we're going to put it right front and center. You can see how many measurements, for example, that you have currently configured out of the max supported by your plan. Similarly, you'll see the fastest logging rate you have versus the fastest that's allowed by your plan. We've streamlined the renewals process. So I think we send few too many emails out of the current system. You get one email per device. So to be kind to your inbox, we're going to start collecting those all in one email. So at the same frequency that you receive emails today, you'll continue to receive emails, but you'll get one that lists all of your devices that are going to expire in the near future. You'll see the same Renew Now button that you see in the current system. That'll take you over to our e-commerce site, onsetcomp.com, to process that renewal. You'll also see the same information right within HOBOlink. So at the top of the devices page for each device, you'll get an orange banner letting you know that the data plan is expiring soon, and you can hop over to the same OnsetComp renewal tool right from the HOBOlink UI. And if your plan has lapsed, you'll see a red banner, and again, with the renew option right there. The renewals process is going to be the same that you go through right now at onsetcomp.com. So it can be a lot to take in. We're going to send out the webinar, so please make sure if you have any questions, this is going to be a great resource. We're also going to have an updated HOBOlink user guide coming out with the next gen HOBOlink. It's accessed via the help menu as soon as you log in. We're updating all the software pages on on onsetcomp.com, both with the user guide in a PDF format and also the pages themselves with a lot of this information. And as always, you can reach out to us with any questions, comments, concerns you have about the experience. So that now takes us to questions. Give me just a second and I'll go over to GoToWebinar and open up and see what questions you have. So the first question I have is, when and how can we access the new HOBOlink? Will it be through the same web link and login information that we currently use? So great question. You'll be able to access the new HOBOlink after we've migrated your account over. So as I mentioned before, we're aiming to launch next-gen HOBOlink, which will start the migration process towards the end of September, early October. We'll send you an email when your account has been migrated with all the details that we talked about now. You'll use your same username to access your HOBOlink account in the future, but you will go to lycor.cloud. This will be included in the email that we send you to access HOBOlink once you've been migrated over to the new experience. We have a question about dashboards saying, to my knowledge, current dashboards support up to 20 widgets. So is the new one the same? No, we've removed that limitation. You can add more widgets to a dashboard, and there's also not the 10 dashboard limitation. So you can have more than 10 dashboards, and on each dashboard, you can also add more than 20 widgets. We have a question about scheduled exports and whether that's available for MX devices. So it's definitely available for MX devices. You'll see the measurements for MX devices listed just like you saw for RX stations, right? There's no difference. You will just see some metadata about the fields. You know, when you're selecting the channels, you'll see whether it came from an RX 2100 or say an MX 1101. And the scheduled export can include those measurements and will send over the data. I think the only important thing to note about MX devices there is HOBOlink can only send the data that it has available for an MX logger. So if you're using the HOBOconnect upload feature, which only is triggered when you download a file in the field, you need that to have occurred before the scheduled export for the data to be available to send over. But yes, you can use scheduled exports for MX devices, RX devices. You can also mix and match in the same export if you would like to. I have another question about dashboards. It's a great feature, so I'm glad you guys are asking questions. Will the public dashboard and HOBOlink links be available? Yes, we carried forward the public dashboard share. That's going to be available right from the dashboard once you create it. There's a little share icon. You open that up. There's a few options. You can turn it on and off, and it'll give you a URL that you can share with other customers. Just to clarify, for those who might not know this feature, this is a great feature to share a view-only version of a single dashboard page. So if you share that link, someone without logging in will be able to have a view-only version of a dashboard, but they won't be able to see any other parts of the system. And we have carried forward that support into the new version of HOBOlink. I've got a question about nothing is changing with HOBOware and HOBOconnect. So definitely no changes for HOBOware as part of this project, and no changes to the base functionality of HOBOconnect if you're using that without a HOBOlink integration for your loggers. There will be some changes in HOBOconnect to support the next-gen HOBOlink experience just for the loggers that are integrated into HOBOlink. So that'll give you access to, say, validate and activate your data plans. You'll see the next-gen HOBOlink login screen, but for the basic functionality of HOBOconnect and HOBOware, we aren't making any changes there. Got a question about existing dashboard URLs. So good question here. As dashboards aren't migrating over, the URLs that you're using for any current dashboards will cease to work when your account is migrated. But just as I was mentioning before, you should be able to quickly get back up and running with dashboards and generate a new URL and share that with anyone who was previously using the URL. Going through a few questions here. There's some very specific questions in the chat, and I think those might be best for follow-up after the session. We have a question about the MX speed plan, and I just want to clarify for the speed plan and for the MX plans in general that you need one MX plan per each logger, and you can choose which plan is right for you. For a vast majority of situations for MX loggers, that's going to be the MX speed plan is the one that works for you. Most of our MX loggers have less than four or less measurements, and that gives you the great 1 minute as a fastest logging interval. If you want to have more measurements, you can opt into the MX data plan that will come with the 5-minute as a fastest logging rate. But important to note, each of those plans is done on a per logger basis. One plan per each logger, pushing into HOBOlink in the future. We did get, I see a comment about not receiving an email for renewals. We're sorry to hear that you haven't. I think it is really important to check which email address is associated with your HOBOlink account to, in general, make sure you're receiving notifications from us. But this will be really critical to make sure you have the right email address in HOBOlink pre-launch, because we are going to send our email, all the emails about the migration process, and include that link to reset the password to an email, to the email that is currently associated with your HOBOlink account. So great question here, because it is a good reminder to go in and check that and make sure it's a valid, up-to-date email address in your HOBOlink account. We have a question about where to find the PDF version of the user guide. So the PDF version of all of our user guides, both for HOBOlink, our hardware, HOBO Connect, those are all available at onsetcomp.com. You can go directly to the product page and find linked relevant documentation, or you can also go to the resources section and find all of the resources that we have, user guides, helpful tips, technical notes will all be found in the resources section of onsetcomp.com. We had a question about one of the specific features of the X-axis. We've carried forward a lot of these features and added some new configuration options to the dashboard wizards. I think there is an X-axis option. There's also a ton of new options. So I didn't cover those in depthly. That's probably its own training session. But just so everyone knows, there's a lot of configuration options carried forward, as well as some new ones for all of the dashboard widgets. Got a question about the data viewer role and whether they'll be able to create their own exports and data deliveries. That is true. They can set up exports and a data delivery or a scheduled export. They're not really interacting or changing, adding any data into the system. So data viewers can have full access to the export section. They do have very limited access to devices and to dashboards as a view-only access. So no editing, adding, or deleting there. Had a question about if MX logger configurations can be managed from the HOBOlink site. No, MX logger configurations will need to continue to be managed via HOBO Connect. That's our application that lets you configure them, including being able to enable the HOBOlink integration, but you'll still need to do all configuration of MX loggers via HOBO Connect. We have a question about how many loggers can be connected to each gateway. I think there's actually, I'm not sure what the max is. We can follow up with that. But usually the limitation that comes in play here is that gateways are looking at Bluetooth advertisements, which generally have a max range of approximately 100 feet. So usually there's a limit to how many loggers make sense to deploy within 100 feet. But you can check the MX gateway documentation to see how many max loggers can be connected via each gateway. Have a question about the transition for gateway loggers. So for anyone who has an active gateway in the system, we're going to give you full credit for a year for each of the loggers that are currently attached to that gateway. You'll get automatically switched to the MX speed. There's no additional charge for any gateway users. You'll get a full year of service from the time of migration. I got a question about the .hobo file. Yes, it's true that you didn't see a .hobo export available. We are slowly moving away from that sort of internal onset file to really standard files across the board. This gives us better tools to support exports as CSV and Excel files. Generally have a lot more support out there versus our homegrown HOBO format. If I had a question about if there's any options to export real-time data to external systems. So either the scheduled exports or definitely our API integration is going to give you fairly real-time. Basically, you can call the API as frequently as you like. We typically recommend, say, if your devices are connecting every 10 minutes, and if you want real-time data, that you make an API call every 10 minutes but slightly offset, just so the system has time to process the new data that's uploaded to HOBOlink. So for example, let's say your system connects every 10 minutes. It connects at 10 o'clock, it connects at 10:10, 10:20. We'd recommend that you call for new data, say around 10:05, 10:15. So that means that you're going to get all of the new data that was pushed basically 5 minutes earlier. That 5 minutes can be dialed in over time, but basically make sure that our system has enough time to receive the data and make it available for a new API call. We had a question about, will the current configurations and setting of the station be reset during the transition? No, it will not. Your configurations, the setting of your station will be preserved through the migration. There's no action to keep RX stations up and running, and it will make no changes to them. The only thing to note there is there will be a temporary pause during the migration, and you'll see that data backfill as soon as the migration process is complete. But no action on any user's part to keep their RX station configurations or setting just as it is right now. Had a question about the MX device upload process. It kind of disconnected and reconnected, and then it's a question about when does the log data get uploaded. So if you've enabled the HOBOlink integration for an MX device and you're downloading that data from HOBO Connect, we'll automatically try to push up that new file either right then if you're on an internet connection or the next time you are on an internet connection. If for some reason that process fails, you'll see those files in the list of data files, and with the next-gen HOBOlink launch, there'll actually be a little indicator, a little icon indicator that tells you whether the file has been successfully uploaded, whether it's in progress, or whether it failed. And if it did fail, you can click that icon to try a refresh process to re-push up the file. That should work in a vast majority of cases, but if you ever hit a case where you can't get a file to upload, please just reach out to our tech support department, open a case, and we'll work with you to get those files pushed to the cloud. Got a few questions about these new MX plans. So yes, I would emphasize that each MX logger moving forward will require one of those data plans. We've tried to price them inexpensively at $25 a year, and that's going to give you access to all of the HOBOlink features. If that's not of interest to you, just a reminder that you can do many of these same functionalities, configuring your logger, downloading the data, sending that data over to other systems right from HOBO Connect itself, but you won't have access to that data within HOBOlink. That does come with a data plan charge after the launch of next-gen. Having some questions about the migration scenarios and the test scripts for that. So we have a full team, our internal team, working very hard on this migration process to both write the logic and also fully test it. Our QA team is quite busy making sure that all of the various scenarios for loggers are covered within the migration script process. And there certainly will be support available during the migration period. Our tech support team, our engineering team, and our QA team will be on full alert. And if you run into any problems, please reach out to those. But I'll also say we've built in a lot of automated QA processes for this process. so that it's likely that if we do run into any issues that weren't covered during our initial testing, we'll know before you know, and we'll aim to fix that before it has any impact on your operations. I have a question about user-supplied SIMs and whether we'll still support those. So customers can continue to bring their own SIMs if they would like to for their plan. There's no plans that are now specific to user-supplied SIMs. And we think our new SIM card has great both US and global coverage. So you won't see a price break for a user-supplied SIM any longer, but if you have a need or just desire to use your own SIM card for your data station, we aren't turning that service down. You can still add your own SIM card. You'll just no longer see a price break for that. Another question about the MX logger. So just to clarify, one plan per logger. And you just need to know how many measurements you want to collect and what's the fastest logging rate. But if you're looking at the MX plans, unless you're very interested in stats, I just recommend that you go with the MX speed. That's going to match the vast majority of the configurations that we see for MX loggers there. And that comes at $25 per logger annually. Just going through to see if there are any new questions. Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly if all information prior to migration date will still be available. If that's about transition information, this presentation will be sent to you. But if this is about, say, station or device data, just to note that we'll continue to accept device data up until migration. There'll just be a temporary pause, and then all of that data will continue to be available within next-gen HOBOlink. So with no action on your part, we're going to move over all your devices, all your data. There should be no gap here. Do have some questions about MX Gateway and the cost. So just so you know, we do have, right now we charge per gateway per year, and that is moving to the loggers. But for a vast majority of customers, you're going to see the exact same price, or you might actually even see a price break here. When we take a look at MX Gateway usage with loggers out there, most gateways, and by this I mean a vast majority of gateways, have 3 or fewer loggers attached to each gateway. So that means when we make this transition to the MX logger plans, that you will either see the exact same price per gateway if you have 3 loggers attached to it at $75, or if you happen to only have 1 or 2 loggers, which is a pretty common scenario we see among our customers, you'll actually receive a price break for that. You might only pay $25 or $50 for 1 to 2 loggers per gateways. All right, I think that captures a lot of the general questions. I do see, a fair number of questions about this MX plan. So if you have any questions, please reach out to your sales representative or your distributor. We'll work with this through you. Really took a look at our customer data and made sure that this made sense for a vast majority of our customers out there. But we want to do right by all of you. So if you do have concerns, please reach out. We will work through each of these situations with you. And we hope you enjoy all the great new features that HOBOlink has to offer. We added these based on your own input, and I think there's some great ones. So thanks for joining us today. Please reach out with any questions, and we appreciate your time. So thanks everyone, we'll wrap up here.